Hey everyone, this is Eleanor with Eleanor's Elite Radio. It's a beautiful day here in Florida, another beautiful day. I want to say that today I'm very excited. We have Mr. Don Most on. I know everybody, I don't have to give an intro by any means. Everybody knows who Donnie Most is. Started off as a singer, I think, really. I mean, he's going to give you all the information, but he was the iconic sitcom Happy Days for 2 decades. Wonderful guy. He's a director, he's an actor, he's a singer, and I'm so grateful that he's calling in again. This is our second interview. Hi, Don. Welcome.
Hi, how are you? It's so great to be back with you again.
Thank you so much. It was, I think, 2 years ago, I was with another radio show, and you had just come out with your Christmas CD.
All right. That's right, Eleanor.
Yeah. So I heard, I know you're performing, you have a lot of performances coming up. One of them is in Puerto Vallarta in next month in March, correct?
In Puerto Vallarta. Yeah,
yes.
I'm going to be down there for about 5-6 days.
Oh,
I have like 4 or 5 shows. So that should be fun. I'm looking forward to going down there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it should be gorgeous. I was there a couple of times back in the day, but never there to perform. So this is a real treat.
That is wonderful,
and I'm sure a little relaxation time mixed in there.
And you just had an anniversary. You're married to your beautiful wife. How many years?
It was 36 years yesterday.
Oh, how wonderful! Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, how wonderful.
Unbelievable.
Now you'll be able to maybe take her with you on that little trip and you guys can have a little nice time there too. It'll be lovely.
Yes. Yeah. We met on Happy Day. She did a small guest role. It was in the last season that I was on the show. And we just kind of hit it off and started dating, and 2 years later, we got married. So another thing to be thankful for on Happy Days, besides the professional side.
Absolutely, Don. Do you? I think you have a new CD that came out, correct?
Yeah, it came out almost a year ago now, I guess, called The Most, Mostly Swinging. Oh. And it's with a wonderful group of musicians, a big jazz band, swing type arrangements to all the great jazz standards, and I just had a wonderful time doing it. Got great response to it, and I'm really excited. Hoping to do more recording and continue live performances, and as I think we talked about, it was my first. It's what I started out doing when I was young, singing before I got involved in the acting side.
Right.
So it's great going back to your original roots,
I don't know how many people know that about you, but you did start off as a singer before you became an actor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was doing it in the Catskill Mountains, which was the famous resort area upstate New York that was very big, in the 50s.
Yeah, Catskills were huge.
Yeah, and I did it. It was still going on in the 60s and 70s. I was there in the summer of 68, and it was a great training ground. Yeah. I was singing as part of the sort of a nightclub act, a review, and we played all the different hotels. They had nightclubs at all the hotels up there.
Right.
And I did it, probably 3, 4, 5 times a week, all summer long. So it was a great training ground for me, and especially at that age. And so I think it built a real foundation for me, so that when I decided to go back to it about 4 years ago, it was like riding a bike. It was in my blood. And the music. I've always loved that kind of music, the great American songbook, and especially with a jazz approach to it, swing and jazz and blues. So it's just I get high. I just get high doing it.
Yeah, it is. It's a great sound, though. It's something that has never yet, that I know of, that's goes out of style. It's a genre that will be here forever. I love, because to me, you really you do bring a lot of, to me, you sound a lot like Bobby Darin. And I know Bobby Darin was one of your favorites, correct?
Yeah.
As a young man?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Yeah, he was. He was absolutely I mean, I loved all the greats like Sinatra and Nat King Cole and
Bennett.
Tony.
Yeah, all of them.
And even the great female jazz singers like Ella Fitzgerald and Dinah Washington. I used to love all of them. But Bobby, really, I got to see Bobby perform at the Copacabana when I was 18. And, I think that had a huge effect on me.
I'm sure it did.
He was amazing live. He was just, and way more than that. A lot of people, I think, know. As successful as he was still very underrated, in my opinion, because he could do anything. He could do any style of music and do it great. And so he had some hits early on in the rock and roll genre, but that's not really what he was about. He could sing the standards, jazz and blues and folk and anything. And I was just so I had like 30 or more of his albums. And if you really listen to the breadth of his material, you could see what a talent he was.
No, he was a very talented man, and you're right. I think he was very underrated as well. Kind of like a little bit, kind of like Frank Sinatra, and then Jimmy Rosselli. I don't know if you're familiar with Jimmy Rosselli, the Italian.
Yeah, I do remember. Jimmy Rosselli.
He was such a beautiful voice. But again, in those days, it was Frank Sinatra that was backed by very big money. I don't have to say where that money came from because I think we all kind of know. And, and Jimmy Rosselli was not. So I think that's how come Frank got to be so much bigger. And, Jimmy was kind of pushed to the side. And I feel like Bobby Darin had that same kind of thing that happened to him. He wasn't very, he did, I don't believe he was given the full potential that he could have been.
Yeah. I agree. And especially, he sadly died so prematurely.
Yeah.
He was 37.
Yeah.
So who knows what he
would have happened.
Yeah.
Too bad you couldn't have done something. I mean, it's still open, I'm sure. Like you could do a duet. Wouldn't that be dynamic with Mr. Tony Bennett? How dynamic would that be?
Oh my God.
That'd be flawless.
I'd fall off the stage out of just being.
I think I would too. Oh, awesome. Don, tell me, you're supposed to be coming to Florida in the near future. Is that still a go?
Yeah, we were looking at, we were at one point, we were hoping to do it next month in Orlando to do some shows, but there were some scheduling problems, so we're looking now in June.
Okay.
To do it in Orlando at Full Sail at the university. They have a theater there.
Yes.
And I hear it's really nice. And so I think it might be 2 shows, and I'll be able to get you the dates as it gets firmed up. But I think it might be in the middle of June.
That's okay. That'll be great for summer. I mean, I think that's going to be a great concert. That theater at Full Sail is beautiful. You'll like it.
Oh, great. Great, yeah.
And as soon as you get the dates, you'll give them to me, and I'll make sure I let all the listeners know where you're going to be and how they can get the tickets and all.
Definitely. Absolutely. You'll be the first to know. I will make sure of it.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask you, I know you grew up in Brooklyn, right? Were you born and raised there?
I was.
And then go ahead. And then you came out to, when did you get
LA?
to California? Yeah. LA.
Okay, so I grew up in Brooklyn and high school and all that, and then I was going to college in Pennsylvania, Lehigh University in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania.
Wow. My uncle was a professor there.
I'm sorry?
My uncle was the head of the engineering department in Bethlehem, Lehigh University.
Wow.
Dr. Fazil Erdogan.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, it was a big it's a big engineering
huge
school.
Engineering school. Yeah.
Yeah, when I entered as a freshman, I was an engineering major.
Oh.
But that was my fallback, But,
yeah.
So I was there through my junior year, and then I went out to California for the summer right after my junior year because I'd been working the 4 years previously to that, going into New York a lot, doing commercials and occasional small TV parts here and there, but a lot of commercials. And I went out to California for that summer to broaden some of my network, so to speak, and contacts, and try to get an agent so that maybe after graduating from Lehigh, I might want to go out and try to get work out there, because at that time they were doing, all the television was being shot out there, and more films were being shot out there. New York didn't have anything like they do now, and so I went out there for that purpose. And things started to go pretty well during that summer, where I landed some guest roles on TV shows. I auditioned for a bunch, and I got 2 or 3 right away. And then the agent said, instead of, you got some momentum going, so maybe you should think about stay out here, take 6 months off of school. You can go back after, but you got some real, momentum going. So I decided that's what I was going to do. And so I was 20, and I stayed out in LA and got a couple more parts. Then nothing happened for a few months, and I was thinking, oh no, a big mistake. And then I got the audition for Happy Days and to do a pilot, and I did that. And then we had to wait to see if it sold, and it did. And so then I never really made it back east.
Yeah, I don't blame you. You were on Happy Days for 2 decades. Let's talk about the character just for one moment, because I read on your website that the character part of Ralph Mouth, which was your role, was not what it was supposed to be the first time around. Like, it was you were supposed to play like a shock jock of some kind.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Well, what happened was, there wasn't really originally a regular role of Ralph, and what happened was I was auditioning for the role of Potsy.
Oh,
but then the producers and some of the executives saw my screen test, and they knew they wanted to go with Ron Howard as Richie and Anson Williams
as Potsy, right?
But a couple of the executives suggested that they create a role for me, because they just liked my screen test, and they said put him in the show. So there was Gary Marshall, who created the show, and he was our exec producer. He decided that there was a small role in the pilot of a guy named Ralph, who was, all that he was described as was a guy who was into cars. He was a little bit of a jock and into cars.
Right.
And that was pretty much, that's all they told me, And so, and I read his scenes. He had like 1 or 2 scenes in the pilot, and he was also, you could see he was a little bit of a wisecracker, and he was he was a little sarcastic, and he would make wisecracking jokes. So, so that's all I had to go on to start with. And then you wait to the next episode and you see how they write it, the character, or what they had for me to say, and
right.
And then there was an evolution of what I brought to the character, and then the writers would see what I brought to it, and it would maybe give them ideas of how to continue to write for him, and sometimes I would come up with ideas that weren't even in the script, and our wonderful director Jerry Paris, who liked to improvise, come up with, to be inventive. He would get inspired by things that I give him ideas, and then
right.
He'd come up with something, and then I'd go, oh yeah, I love that, and then I would do that, and then the writers would see that, so it helped, it helped influence the course of or the evolution of that character, and it certainly did evolve.
But it's so wild, because I couldn't now. I was a Happy Days girl. I was born in the '60s, so I watched Happy Days and I loved it, and our whole family watched it. And I don't think I could vision you as Potsy. I think that was strictly a role for Anson. That I don't think that was your role. I think you were absolutely Yeah.
Well, it definitely would have been different. It definitely would have been a different Potsy, I think. So, it all worked out for the best.